Sir, that's why I use the word possible. I'm fully aware of the fact that you work in a separate division if I had the time to finish with that statement. My point is this, hubris. Do you understand the concept of hubris, sir?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to indulge in this anymore.
Okay,
Obviously,
obviously
let's wrap it up, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Make your complaint. I got the letter. Whatever you want, I will give it to you. I've offered it to
Let's
everybody.
move on.
Thank you.
Lori Perk. How about Sheldon Tenorio?
Lori.
Are you telling me you have a signed statement from Lori?
Oh, I am Lori.
You are Lori. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I apologize. I wasn't sure. Go right ahead. I'm sorry. It's late.
I know it is. So, Commissioner Chapman, I want to ask you personally, this assessment that you're waiting on from the tech. You can't hear me?
No, you have to
You gotta get close.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, I can hear myself. Okay, so the assessment that you're kind of waiting on could potentially tell you essentially how much money that the companies will be making from passing this ordinance, if you pass this ordinance. But I feel like you're willing to sacrifice people's lives and the respective tribal leaders on a hunch that the county might make money from this because you're not waiting on the assessment. So
You're asking me?
I'm asking that if you can just wait until you're more informed on that aspect at least. If you could please motion to table this ordinance. And then Commissioner Block.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So
I'm sorry, I was like looking for a letter. I was a little bit upset, but go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
That's okay. I got to deal with people like that. It's okay.
And to put you on the spot again.
Sure.
So, if you, I was really, just really distraught when you brought up you don't know what you're voting on kind of thing.
You're talking tonight?
Yes.
Based on 11 Alpha and Bravo?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I felt that it's your job. The agenda was up at least 72 hours before, and we all had an opportunity to read it.
You know what? You're going to have to speak up.
Okay. Sorry. So the agenda was up 72 hours before, and we all had an opportunity to read it, and
Right.
yet you approved it, the minutes prior from November, you approved the minutes from October, you approved the minutes of September, you approved the agenda before we even started the meeting, and it just showed to me that you were not really concerned about this meeting at all, and I really felt disheartened about that.
I'm sorry.
And I felt disheartened about that.
Okay, can I ask you a question? So we all approved the consent of the agenda, except tonight I did not approve of the consent of the agenda based on 11 Alpha and Bravo. That's how the vote went tonight. As for the other county commission meetings prior to this, I think we have all unanimously approved consent to the agenda before every county commission. So can you just explain the question again?
Well, what about when you said, isn't this what happened in September? Isn't this what happened in the last meeting? We have minutes, and you approved those minutes.
That was related to an email that I read from Mr. Springfield.
The September portion, or
This
the
September
November?
21st and the November one
Okay.
was an email that I read from Mr. Springfield that I was upset about because the sound was different in the ordinances, and I didn't like how that was presented, and I didn't like how it was on the agenda tonight. So that's why I voted no for the consent of the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So I'm going to ask if you can please motion to table this ordinance because you yourself, and I'm sure others, feel uninformed.
I feel what?
Ill-informed.
Ill-informed?
Thank you, that's all.
No, I would say misinformed.
Okay.
But I'm with you.
Yeah?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lori. Bill Deaton. Bill?
Yeah,
Bill Deaton.
we want to, we're in sequence, so,
With Mr. Dave Thompson?
Right.
First. Keep going.
Tom Hill.
There you go.
Okay, so who wants to go first?
He goes.
Tom Hill, come on up, sir.
Thank you.
You don't have a brother named Joe, do you?
No. And I don't have a brother named Booth either.
You heard the song about Joe Hill.
Oh, yeah. No relationship. Good evening. My name is Tom Hill, and I'm the president of the San Pedro Creek Homeowners Association.
Can you speak into the mic?
I am the president of San Pedro Creek Homeowners Association. San Pedro Creek Estates is a community of approximately 4,600 natural acres and 800 residents on 400 properties. Most developed, some not, in the East Mountains at the eastern edge of Sandoval County. We are surrounded by Bernalillo and Santa Fe counties to the south and north, and Edgewood to the east. However, to our residents, we are the forgotten ones of Sandoval County. Our East Mountain community and neighbors, many professional engineers, geologists, and scientists, overwhelmingly reject the notion that oil and gas drilling permitting is going to be a benefit to us or to Sandoval County as a whole. In order to be a benefit, the rewards of an ordinance must outweigh the risk. But in this case, that hasn't been proven. In the East Mountains of Sandoval County, all of us are on private water wells. The state engineer has ruled on several occasions that the water in our aquifer is fully appropriated, and in fact, as we measure water levels in our own wells, we show a decline. Our community has been in an extended legal battle for over 7 years, fighting for our limited water against out-of-state companies intent on water mining for profit. This proposed new oil and gas ordinance, if implemented, will further put our already endangered and fragile water resources at risk, and in turn, our property values, both because of the high water usage needing for fracking and the potential for aquifer contamination. The main beneficiaries are not Sandoval County citizens, but the select out-of-state companies profiting at our expense. Our community is also underserved by Sandoval County since we collectively pay millions of dollars in property taxes each year, but receive few services in return. No hospital, infrequent sheriff patrols, no maintenance on our 26 miles of private roads, limited emergency response personnel, and a small volunteer fire station. The existing 60-year-old pipelines that run through and around our community are corroding as they age and would present an additional risk to us because of the increased strain on them from oil and gas drilling ground movement, coupled with a lack of plans or personnel for emergencies in the event of fires, explosions, or hazardous waste spills. Our community strongly supports Sandoval County through our property tax revenue. We ask, but generally do not receive, the level of county support enjoyed by other areas of the county. As taxpayers, as constituents, as citizens, and as families, now is the time for the commission to step up and support us, our environment, our health and safety, our property, by voting against this gas and oil ordinance. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hill. Okay, you guys have got the order figured out. Just tell me your name.
Hi, my name is Kathy Cooper, and I live in the same neighborhood as Tom Hill, the East Mountain, that little tiny corner on Commissioner Heil's map in the southeast corner. I wanted to just mention that, as Tom said, we all have private wells, we all have our own wells, and so we're extremely concerned about the amount of water usage that is expended in horizontal fracking, oil drilling or fracking. There was a study actually provided by Frac Focus. They actually looked at the inventory of wells in all of New Mexico and found that on average, each well uses about 7 million gallons of water. So to us, you know, we live in a state that is the 5th driest state in the union. We only get 14.6 on average inches of rain a year. And so water is just too precious. And it's clean, it's clear. Where we live, we have wonderful drinking water, and we don't want anything to mess with that. So a lot of people have already talked about the importance of that, so I'm just going to ask you to please table this ordinance until you have more information and are able to make a more informed decision. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Dean, right? Mr. Dean?
Pass these out. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for letting us talk here. We drive about an hour and a half to get here from the other side of the mountain. There's no shortcuts, unfortunately. You know, we want to do something to protect our area on the Turquoise Trail, and we're looking at what we can do there. We don't really understand what the possibilities are, but we're thinking a community district overlay would be what we need in the East Sandia Mountains to protect us from oil and gas exploration. We're also concerned that we're not getting the notifications of meetings. We don't know what you guys are doing over here. And we were fortunate that Dr. Holden Rhodes came over and visited with us, but we were all caught off guard. I mean, we didn't even understand that there was an ordinance being considered a week ago. And, you know, so we're here now to let you know we need to be notified. We need to know. We're paying a good portion of taxes over here, and if I understand it right, we're probably between 5 and 7% of your total tax base. We had heard that Mr. Block had talked about giving our communities, all communities, the liberty and freedom to decide how they want to live in their communities and protecting them as a form, I guess the foremost form of democracy. We're concerned that if we let the oil and gas companies into this area of the county, the populated area, that, you know, we're going to be stuck with the fact that our property values will go down and that we're going to end up cleaning up the mess when it's all done. So we ask you to table the ordinance with at least a temporary moratorium, make the proper notifications to all of your constituents, allow time for honest due diligence, and you know, just do the duties that you have as elected officials. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dean. Who's next in the group over there? Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak before you today. My name is David Thompson. I live in San Pedro Creek. The founders of this great nation forged a government that's supposed to be of, for, and by the people. But Sandoval County, from our perspective, has upended this. They're treating the East Mountain community. They are treating the East Mountain community as if it exists to generate revenue for you to tax and spend. We ask for a voice in our governance, and that you would listen to us. We are in basically the same situation that our founders were originally, in that they continued to write to the king and petition him and ask for abeyance from taxation without representation. But in fact, the kings in Sandoval County are not listening to the colonies in East Mountain. I live in San Pedro Creek, and except for the tax assessor's car and a tax assessor, I have never seen a Sandoval County vehicle in my neighborhood, nor another employee, until Dr. Holden Rhodes came and visited us the other day. It was only about a week ago that I even heard about the trash and the oil and gas ordinances that have been placed upon us. We're an extremely self-sufficient group. East Mountain residents have private water wells. They have propane, natural gas. They're building a natural gas line. We have private roads that we pay for and maintain. We have our own trash pickup that we pay for. We're self-policing. We have a volunteer fire department, and many of our citizens are in the first responders group. Bernalillo County and private schools provide our kids with their education. We self-manage an open space. We maintain a trail system in our region. We have church and community-based athletic events for our youth. Legal protection of our water, as in the aquifer science case mentioned earlier, is in great measure by Bernalillo County. Sandoval County has not seen fit to come forward and help protect us and the precious water resource that we have. I've been asked to talk a little bit about economics, and I am ill-posed to be able to do that. I'm a mechanical engineer, bachelor's, master's, PhD. I've been in academia most of my life, and I have risen to the rank of Dean of Engineering. But I can do this. I can tell you this much from our perspective, not from your perspective, but from ours. For a cost-benefit ratio, we pay about $7 million in taxes, and if I divide that by the benefits, which are zero, any high school math textbook would tell you that that's infinity. And unfortunately, cost-benefit ratios should be between 1 and 0. So we're kind of a long way from the proper cost-benefit ratio. We typically spend a lot of money in Sandoval County by throwing our dollars over the mountain, and nothing comes back. From this perspective, our membership in Sandoval County is a really, really, really bad deal. So I can also tell you, being someone who is part of the opposition to people trying to capture our water, when I've studied the geology tables in great measure, and I've seen what I call cartoons of the underground geology in our area. And they're cartoons because if you can imagine the surface where we can see some of the geology, and if you can imagine that there are these little pinpricks in it that are the water wells, and we get the tailings from these, we get some idea of the first little bit. And occasionally there are deep monitoring wells that are sunk in the ground. They take this tiny bit of data over this huge area, and they build these beautiful color maps that have no guarantee that they are real. Our area is so fractured that one of our neighbors had a water well that went dry. He deepened it, it could not get water. He moved 10 feet, drilled another well, and got water. That's how fractured this area is. And if you want to talk about drilling in that geology, I say that you are playing with fire. That the loggers will make a lot of money, but the county of Sandoval and us in the East Mountain area, not so much. I personally would vote against these ordinances, but I would at least ask your opinion on abeyance and tabling them until you get a chance to do the proper due diligence. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Terry Lindover.
That would be me, the
No,
last of the
okay.
hill people.
All right.
Okay. So, for all of us in the audience tonight, I think that we would ask Dr. Noyes, how many decibels each time the microphone pops we're talking about, because I think it's nothing compared to 55, but all of us can recognize that it's a very irritating noise. So just imagine living with something at 55. So I think I'm certainly humbled by the speakers I've heard tonight. To be surrounded with people that have given such thought and care to the community and want to provide so much research and self-education. I'm really humbled to be a part of this audience, and I recognize why there's people that come time after time, because it's great to be surrounded by these citizens. And I recognize that for you, you're representing such a diverse group of interests, but we've elected you as the stewards to make good decisions. And as it says in your charter, you're responsible for the health, welfare, and safety of your community. And we're here to help you make informed and better decisions as we go. Certainly, all the discussions about fracking and the hydraulic fracking implications, you've heard about noise, you've heard about water, you've heard about environmental concerns, you've heard about health considerations, but the one thing that we're all unified on is that without water, our health, safety, and welfare isn't what any of us want to be. Your legacy as the commission, when we look back on what you said, you wanted to have that. And when we opened the meeting and I saw the branding survey, and I saw what was important to your citizens of weather, we take that for granted. None of these decisions we're talking about are going to necessarily impact the weather. Cultural diversity, you see it right here in this room. We're all aligned on a common purpose of making good decisions. But the quality of life, that's what we're really talking about here tonight, that could truly be changed by some small and major implications of the things we decide to do as we move forward into this. The focus groups, if you asked our group 90 days from today, if some of these things go through and you had the focus groups, would they be able to say that they're proud to live in a quiet, beautiful community? Could we look at that water video and say none of the background of those images that we saw are going to include any kind of environmental impact? I don't think we could. And I want to be able to be a part of the focus group, even though nobody in my neighborhood was called to be a part of the first round of surveys, to be a part of that word cloud and have those all be positive words that come up when we talk about how proud we are to live in Sandoval County. We want to be able to be a part of the economic development, but there's so many other ways to do it. We just don't feel like this is a long-term solution. It's a short-term idea to bring money into the coffers of the county that are going to have long-term implications. And somebody said earlier we have a $22 billion rainy day fund in the state that we don't use. I guarantee you that those coffers will be tapped by citizens coming back through our resources asking for health, welfare, and safety reparation. Thank you.
Elaine Gilmartin.
Let's see if I can make this thing go this time. Good evening. Here I am. I'm Elaine Gilmartin. I live in Peña Blanca. My grandson and granddaughter are the 7th generation of my family in New Mexico. We have loved and survived living in balance through what we have learned from the land, the water, the people who have been here long before we came. We have not persisted this long on the basis of these blessings to screw it all up now. I had some things to say, and what strikes me so deeply is that I want to echo everything, every voice that has been raised here tonight, and a millionfold. And I believe that there are a million resonations of the words that have been spoken here from the heart, from brilliant minds, from deep commitment, and from the patience that we have all had. Thank you, gentlemen, for having the patience that it takes to do the deep work to get this right. It's a big deal, and we have to get it right. The few things that I'd like to particularly point out for my area is that I speak from a place for the rural, unincorporated areas that are completely unprotected and badly served by the terms of this ordinance, as it is written, as it is amended. And as it happens, there are 8,000 to 10,000 people between Algodones to Cochiti Lake who are directly affected in the largest, purest aquifer possibly in the Southwest, in the most infinitely fractured, risky geology, that are directly affected by any negative impacts of drilling. We're upstream, we're at an earthen dam that is unstable to begin with. We are in a geologic area that contains 9 volcanic cones connected to one that is not extinct, and everything and everyone, including you, are downstream. We have to get this right. We do not have emergency response capability anywhere in this county, actually, with the $1 million trucks and the training and the chemicals to deal with drilling accidents, oil, chemicals. We don't have the ability to protect from that. The people in the rural areas have no protection under this ordinance, and we've got to ask you to slow down, to have the courage to dig down and acknowledge that this ordinance, as it's written, as it's submitted, as it's even amended now, is so flawed and so inadequate to protect our well-being that we cannot in good conscience go forward with it. We really must wait, slow down, figure it out, get it right. Because we have a dinosaur that we need to put in the corner and make it behave while we figure out how to meet our energy needs without crapping in the nest.
Thank you, Ms. Gilmore. Nothing else.
Thank you, Commissioners, for giving me the opportunity to speak. You'll love this because mine is short and sweet. Our planet is in peril. We are all connected to each other and to every living being. Destroying our ecosystem destroys us. Drilling in the Mancos Shale between Moriarty, Placitas, and the Rio Grande Valley would be lethal to the environment. This would cause earthquakes and could ruin our aquifer forever. Fracking companies are backed by private equity companies. They come in, ruin the land, and go somewhere else. The people who live there are expected to pay for the damage, not that it can be fixed. This is part of the privatization of water. We need to transition from oil and gas to wind and solar. Let's be pioneers in green technology instead of sheep following the herd of oil and gas. Let's fund community colleges that are already training people in these fields instead of cutting their funding. When we die, we don't take with us our wealth, our possessions, or our social standing. What we may take with us is the imprint or the energy of the choices we have made. Let's make choices that protect our land, our air, our water, for future generations and for all of life. Thank you.
Daniel Strums. Nancy Overruling.
Kerubin? Nancy Kerubin?
Overruling.
Close. Kerubin, it's a Q.
It's a Q. Oh, okay, sorry. I saw it as no. I apologize.
Thank you.
Q Rubin. Q Rubin.
Good evening. Thank you again. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to be heard. I represent the Rio Rancho Estates area, not a rural area technically.
Can't hear you, ma'am.
Not a rural area technically, but the Rio Rancho Estates area is the area that I represent. And I represent about 15 families there, and we meet regularly. They call it happy hour. But we talk about all the different things that are going on. And it's just a few miles down the road, right there at Idalia and Iris, where we had the blackout last night from the inferno, the transformer that exploded. When we moved out here 5 years ago, I've been in New Mexico for 30 years. I worked with prenatal education, OB, infants, and am currently in the season of caring for my mom who's 85. So my heart is for the very young and the very old. And they are deeply affected by the condition of the water. And 5 years ago, we bought this house together. My mother lives in the teen quarters, and my husband and I live in the other wing. But we don't drink the water. I had it tested from Hall Environmental, and we don't drink the water. We have a well. I joke about living on an anthill because the ground is so unstable. When it rains or there's inclement weather, we have gullies that you can stand in, and they're up to your waist on either end. So you may have heard of the neighborhoods that wash out for there. I've spoken with the road department right there off of Iris numerous times. I've explained that we have a great washboard that really irritates my mother when I have to take her to her appointments or things of that nature. And he says that they said our tax dollars that we pay, our county tax dollars, that only a fraction of it goes to the city who maintains our roads. So the whole idea of introducing something like this to create more instability, I'm just not for it. And my mother's not for it, and neither of the neighbors are for it. And at the hospital, we talk about evidence-based medicine and informed consent, not whitewashing. Evidence-based medicine means we do this thing, it's the right thing to do. Everyone's on board. Oops, never mind. Something showed evidence that it wasn't the best thing to do. It created harm, so we change it. And it's constantly in flux. Practicing medicine, I call it. So I implore you to please don't make this a big oops. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Laura Chavez. Oh, we're getting down to the end, folks. Demetrius Johnson. Rebecca Ortega. Okay, so that ends the list. Oh, Rebecca, is that you? Yes. Okay, sorry. Didn't see you over there.
I would like to say thank you to all of you, my brothers and sisters, for coming this evening and staying till almost midnight to share what's in your hearts, to share all of the things that you want to tell the commissioners, because we love our New Mexico and we want to keep it clean and clear and a happy, healthy place to live. So I really want to say thank you to each and every one of you for coming out and giving your testimony. Good evening. My name is Rebecca Ortega. I'm from the Pueblo of Santa Clara.
Can't hear you.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Ortega, and I am from the Pueblo of Santa Clara and Milwaukee. I just would like to say that we have a very beautiful state. Our state of New Mexico is rich in culture and tradition. People from all over the world come to New Mexico throughout the year to come and enjoy the beauty of our culture, of our traditions, to come and visit the pueblos, to come and visit the dances and the songs, to come and visit Santa Fe, to come and ski, to do all the things that they love to do. And that provides a lot of economic income, provides good economic development, I would say, you know, for our state. And so, you know, I really think that if we were to go through with this oil and gas industry thing, our water will be not clean, our air will be polluted, our land will be contaminated, and no one will ever come to visit us. No one will ever want to come to the state of New Mexico because now we have destroyed it. Now we have made it unclean, unhealthy, unsafe, and that's not what we want to do. Let's see. One can argue that we need the revenue, but we already have the revenue because we have the casinos, which provide a lot of jobs. We have the restaurants, the galleries, and all these places that people come and use when they come to visit our state. And the rest of us pay taxes when we're working to keep our schools going, the policemen, the roads, the infrastructure going. And then there's the question of progress and jobs. What is progress when you have allowed the air, the land, and our precious water to be contaminated for our children and for our future generations? What is progress when you can't have a clean glass of water? What is progress when we can't assure that our children will live in a healthy environment? This is our homeland to 19 pueblos, the Apaches, the Navajos, the Spanish, and other minorities. We are the protectors of our Mother Earth, and we cannot allow her to be raped. Our ancestors would not be happy with us if we just let things go. They have sacrificed for us. They have stayed strong for us so we can have what we have today. Why do we even need oil and gas industry? What we really want is clean water, clean air, clean land to do our farming, and we want excellent health for our children and for future generations. Let's see. And when we know that this is wrong for our people, this is also wrong for our future generations and for our state of New Mexico. We should not do this. How do you justify contaminating our water, air, and land that is very vital to our quality of life and the lives of future generations? How will you explain to the Lord our God why you spearheaded the destruction of his beautiful land, of his clean air, of his clean water that he created for all of us to use? The answer is we should not destroy what was given to us from our Creator. Please consider the fact of, in my opinion, we don't need the oil and gas industry. We need to go towards more solar, towards more natural resources to get our power going. Thank you for listening to me, and please think about our people. We cannot, I feel very strongly because we cannot allow our traditions, our culture, our people to just be swept away because of the oil and gas industry. We don't need them here. We have other ways of making our state work, and we have done it for thousands of years. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Bear with me, I've got the young lady over here in the shop, and I've got the lady holding their hand up. I got everybody. I got everybody. You know what, let's just do this again. Everybody can speak again. Go ahead now.
Thank you so much for your time, commissioners, and for giving all of us an opportunity to speak. I'm Dr. Robin Balcob. I have a morning news show and an afternoon one once a week. Otherwise, I'm on Monday through Friday. I've covered
Please speak
fracking
up.
for the past 9 years. And in that period of time, as I'm sitting here and listening, I am so impressed by my community members and their knowledge and their awareness and understanding of the risks that we're facing, because they are so far-reaching. And if any of you have not looked at a satellite imagery, go look at the areas in Pennsylvania where Marcellus Shale is. It looks like a cancer over that part of the country, and it's only got to be worse. I have not looked at that for years now. But what I learned from the people that I've interviewed is that that area, the whole Gulf Coast, these places are referred to as sacrifice zones because they are rich in resources, and the people are not important because the resources are what matters. So they go ahead and people have to wind up walking away from their homes. Baseline studies were never done. People are very sick. Several of the people I've interviewed have died because of where they lived and the exposures. And it is a very concerning issue. And one of our community members mentioned that you guys are the stewards for us of our health as well as everything else. And for us to go forward feeling secure about our health, we must have baseline studies, and that's going to delay you even more. But baseline studies will establish what kind of contamination is present for the water, for the air quality, and that will enable the people in the communities to have an opportunity, if and when there are problems, which more than likely happens. I don't know any areas where they have not happened. They have recourse. They have nothing if you do not have those studies. And independent testing needs to be done, and obviously these types of baseline studies are not for your tech university, so I get that. I understand the difference now with what you were saying about what was being covered for what they would look at, but there's no mention of what's going to protect the people and their health. And that is a big concern. So fracking will destroy rural infrastructures, the roads, the water tables. I mean, I can go on, but the first thing is let us have some protection for our futures. So I thank you all for your time, and my wonderful community members. When we work together, we make miracles. So let's get something where we can participate with all of you to make some of these decisions. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. You're next. You're up, and then you're next.
I have 5 copies for the commissioners and well and one for your records. Forever.
Get close.
When I first got
You're not close enough.
here at 420, I want to thank you for letting me speak because I'm apparently on the wrong list. I couldn't get here until 420. The chambers are always full by that time. So I had somebody inside sign me up, and they signed me up for the Stoddard ordinance and not the Hale ordinance. And so I'm going to start with that. First, I'm going to say my name's Karen Yank, and I'm the president of the Turquoise Trail Preservation Trust. I'm going to start with that I think there's something unethical about having the 2 ordinances on the agenda and possibly illegal. But the fact that somebody signed me up for the wrong one, because we should be only voting on one, it's crazy. So I agree with Commissioner Block completely on that, and then I also am here to support the area that my organization covers is the East Mountain area along the Turquoise Trail and Commissioner Holland Roads district. And I wanted to thank him, first of all, for doing that meeting and coming and talking to our people, because I've been trying to get the word out and trying to get people to wake up that this was happening. And finally, we have, and you saw that. But I want to support his efforts. Last meeting, he was the only one to suggest tabling this ordinance, and he had two very good reasons. And first was the study or assessment. And the thing is about that, I think it was Commissioner Eichwald tonight said, you know, I have the orders or the whatever they voted for last year, the other commission, to go forward with this assessment, and then you have the work order that went out, but they read differently. And when Mr. Springfield got up and read what the study was supposed to be about, it did talk about water, and it did say we would figure out where the water is and proximity to the oil and how that might be affected. But then when Commissioner Holland Rhodes read what they are actually saying, they're saying they don't have enough money to do that. They're not going to really check out the water. Well, all of this goes together. This isn't so great. But our taxpayers' dollars paid for that assessment, and the people are telling you they want to see it before you go forward. I think the least you could do is let us see what our money paid for before we make a decision. And if it's really true that they couldn't assess the water, then I think I vote for our taxpayers' dollars to fund a study that will give us those answers before we go forward. It's our money. I think we all agree that we'll spend it before you go forward with this ordinance. So I agree with tabling it. I also agree that we should table it for a second reason, is because I think we don't have proper tribal consultation. And I listened to these people for several meetings, and I support them 100%. And I don't think we should go forward. It's not right, and it's not fair. Last thing I want to say is, if we are to do any ordinance, none of these seem to be strong enough for the people of Sandoval County. But any ordinance that we would even dream of passing has to have conditional use for all, for everyone.
Yes.
Because you know what?
Yes.
We live in a civilized society here, right? You don't put up a new structure on your property without saying to your neighbor, you know, hey, I'm going to be building over here, and you know, letting them know, and then they may have some concerns, and you listen to them, right? And that's common decency. And that's what we're asking for, common decency. If an oil operation is going up near my house, I should be told about it, and I should have some kind of sense that I get to weigh in about my concerns and get some answers. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Speak up, please. The mic.
Am I supposed to push this?
If the light's on, you're good. Just get in close to the mic.
Is this better?
No, you got it turned off now.
Okay.
There you go.
Got it. All right. Thank you very much. I share some concerns about the procedure and the presence of what
Excuse me, can I ask you a favor? Can you move to the other mic? That mic seems to pop. And the other one might not. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that better?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. All right, Mr. Chairman. When an ordinance is amended, that doesn't suddenly make two ordinances. Generally, the proper procedure is that you move a for substitute to have the amended ordinance to vote. So this presence of two different things that you're talking about voting on, I don't know. I mean, there's making a mistake and there's making stuff up. And I'm a little concerned that what's happening is the second one. There's also, it was mentioned that we're talking about zoning issues, and I would refer you to the state statutes regarding zoning obligations by zoning authorities. 321.5 is one that comes to mind with regard to comprehensive plan, and there are certain statutory obligations, one of which includes providing adequate air, maintaining. Another one includes, explicitly states preserving the value of the land. So there are actually state statutes with which you must comply. Third, with this respect to the substance of the zoning ordinance itself, under no set of circumstances should something as impactful as hydraulic fracturing be a permissive use in any region that has the population that Sandoval County does. A number of people have asked you to table this or whatever other ordinance, whatever you want to call what you're dealing with. And that also is not really an appropriate action. Generally, tabling something just means you move it to the end of the meeting. Appropriate actions would be to defer it, postpone it indefinitely, or vote on it and vote it down, or approve, or whatever the actions are. And I would refer you to your own rules of procedure and conduct to determine your options. And I would encourage you to vote no on all of the ordinances that allow any sort of permissive use for hydraulic fracturing. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you for your patience. I've got the young man in the ball cap back here. He's been patient. If he's, okay, he's going to defer to the young lady, okay? Come on up, and then you're next, sir? With the ball cap?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Ja, Hobabrado Yinicha Toricini Nishli Nakaitana Evashichi. Totsoni Dashichi Master Apache Dokumanchi Dashinala Ahos Alexander Nishle. I am enrolled in the Navajo Nation. I also represent the Master Apache and Comanche nations. And first I want to start off by saying I want to acknowledge the land that I'm on, which is Pueblo land. And I am a student at the university. I'm part of the UNM Kiva Club, as well as the Red Nation and a foster care youth group. And I don't want to say the same things that other people before me have. I just want to reference them. One, the missing and murdered Indigenous women that comes along with fracking, and the statistics of increased sexual violence due to extractive industries, man camps, and all of the different statistics that come around that. I just want to revitalize that thought. Second, tribal consultation and tribal consent. You are a guest here as a settler, and so it's really important that you always consult with tribal nations. It is imperative, especially to not repeat history. So, at the beginning of introducing myself, I expressed to you my kinship. What in Diné we refer to that as Ke. And so our kinship are our relatives. In Diné, that's water, air, Mother Earth, everything above, in between, and below. All of those are our relatives. Those are entities that we will always consider sacred and protect as Indigenous people. And I'm sure that goes across all of the different tribal nations. Not to mention the impact that fracking will have on our non-human relatives. We've just been talking about our communities. What about our non-human relatives, our insect beings, our water beings? I think it's so important that we emphasize that this decision, and right now everyone's so stressed out about it, it's going over midnight, but if this decision was approved, it would affect our communities probably till the end of our lives, into our children and our grandchildren's lives and beyond. So it's not really a huge price to pay staying over midnight. And as a young person, we want to be heard. We always want to have our voice emphasized within these types of atmospheres simply because we never have a voice as young people, and we are never heard. And as young Indigenous people, we are severely marginalized And we hope that you will hear all of my relatives and sisters and brothers and non-binary folks have already emphasized about our kinship to this land as Indigenous people. And I truly hope that you will take what we have said into your process of deciding what happens. And I do, me, myself, my organizations, we all oppose any ordinance that will desecrate our Mother Earth. Thank you.
That's right.
Men auch jag kör med Schultzman so
I'd like to thank the tribal leaders and every tribal member here and everybody in Sandoval County that's standing with us today. Thank you for coming.
thank you for the board for being patient with us and listening to us as well and giving us the opportunity to speak. One point that I want to bring up is the reiteration and
Can't hear you.
one point I want to bring up is the reiteration and the constant use of the word, the phrase, economic opportunity and development. And Mr. Chairman, you had said in the beginning that economic opportunity and development is important to our future generation and our youth, and that it will help them out in the future with education, infrastructure, etc. If our children are not healthy enough to see the future and to be healthy enough to see the benefits of these economic opportunities and if they are not healthy enough to receive the benefits of these economic opportunities, what are they worth to us? What are they worth to our children in the future if they're not even going to be healthy enough to use the development and the economic support that these that these oil companies and gas companies are going to provide to our communities? What we need to do for our strive in economic development and opportunity is, push in other directions such as sustainability and renewable energies. I think that in the future, if we focus on those things right now as economic opportunities and development, the future for our youth and future generations will benefit from that more than they will benefit from these oil companies and gas companies. Another point that I want to talk about is the assessment that's going to be done by New Mexico Tech. And I understand that the people that you guys are going to bring in to do this assessment they're going to be very knowledgeable in their area of expertise. And I don't doubt that, but I do doubt that they have any knowledge or, expertise in the cultural significance of our lands. And I ask that during this assessment, when this assessment takes place, that you consult with tribes and have somebody alongside with these New Mexico Tech students or engineers, scientists, walking alongside them so that they can let them know and distinguish the cultural significance of certain sites and certain paths or valleys in our lands. Another issue I want to emphasize is that consultation does not mean consent. Consultation and consent are two different things. To consult a tribe is one thing, but to get consent from a tribe is a totally different thing. And I hope you guys understand that. And I just want to say that I'm against this ordinance, and I hope that ordinance gets postponed indefinitely, and or until you guys can provide an adequate, full, comprehensive assessment of and consultation with the tribes of what's going to be implicated in these in this ordinance. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, young man back here in the corner, I don't know if he still wants to speak. I promised him he'd get the opportunity, and then I'm going to go to you, sir.
So you can crash out.
Yeah, you look like you're trying to catch a wink back there.
Now, Hawe, Tansire, now Hawe, Desmond Marcus, Navito, Hawe, Tansire, Hera, Oke, Winge, Omu. I come from Oke, Winge, and I come to just speak from my heart, from my soul. I've grown up living in two worlds, living in the society world and living in my cultural ways. Living in these two worlds has made me see the right and wrong between the two different ways that we live in this world. There's two ways to everything in this world. In my perspective, I see that oil and gas are things that we don't need and we never needed. We were always, we say, surviving for thousands of years, and we used the natural resources. And when the settlers came in, they brought all kinds of different things. And I'm not fully native, I'm Hispanic as well. And I come from a bloodline of Hispanic and Native who have joined together. I think it's time for us to make a change. It's time for us to come together as all as one and to make the right choices for our earth, our place, our lives, our animals, the homes for our animals, our spirits, our minds. We must watch what we think. We must watch the way we act. For we can't take all these physical things to the next world. We can only take what we think and what we do.
That's right.
And we must be humble to one another, respectful to one another. And I see all of you as light beings and lovable beings. And I see that we're all just lost. We need to see the light in the darkness and we need to come together, think of the right choices. Thank you.
Sorry if I don't formally address you guys. This is my first time doing this, so I'm just gonna first start off by asking that you guys table this. There's just not enough information out there. And then furthermore, I'd like to continue how at the beginning of this session, we bowed our heads in respect to two individuals who lost their lives. Now, what are we gonna do when 1 million babies are disabled or sick and they're losing their lives? You know, we need to bow our heads and think about them as well as the two that just, lost their lives, unfortunately. Another observation I observed here was the domestic violence. I didn't know that was such an issue here, but at the time, these two women were the only ones informed. They were the only ones paying attention. It's not to knock what you guys are doing, but there's just not a whole lot of concern. And to domestic violence, I really think it should be a concern because I did go to North Dakota to Standing Rock, and there I learned about man camps. I learned about the drug use that comes through with these oil industries. These men need to stay up pumping this oil for 4 to 5 days straight. They need something to assist them. They bring in the meth gets introduced to the community starts going haywire. These men are now lonely and looking for love. They look to my indigenous sisters for that fulfillment, and it robs them. So what I ask you is, if you really want to do an assessment, go to Carlsbad. I was just out there for a tattoo convention. It's what I do, so it really threw the oil workers off who I was tattooing that that I was so informative. I wanted to know a bunch of information. The density of the ground there on 285, this is from a foreman, it's so brittle. And when I asked, you know, like, what is going to be done for the security of everything that's being extracted out of the land, out of the earth, and when nothing's getting put back, what concerns are being addressed? And he told me that those aren't concerns, the money's concern. And then furthermore, when he got into detail about how the oil operates like the blood in a human body, that it cycles throughout the earth, and it's timed on when they can collect it and how it's collecting, was very discerning, because, you know, there's a lot that goes into the creation of what we are living on, and it's not our place to move mountains and start taking what is underneath that we hold sacred. This is very important to all of us. So what I'm asking is just please, you know, like economical development, it's been said, we are New Mexico, we are the land of the sun, we are the Zia people, that why do we not get away from this entity and this kind of norm and go to the projection of solar energy? We have mountain ridges. Why don't we put windmills up there? We have water. Why aren't we generating energy from our rivers? Why are we being followers? And if we want people to come here, we want people to come here with good hearts. We don't want people to come here with bad hearts and start destroying and desecrating our land. So what I'm saying is, through economical development, there are other resources that we can look into, and we can lead a development in the world and start a whole new trend and put New Mexico on the map for being leaders and not being followers to the society and this way of life that they you know, they kind of corner you into. And it's like, you know, you can make more money, you can have this relinquished lifestyle that is important at the time, but is not important in the long run. And like my brother Des said, Sunbird, a lot of my brothers and sisters all said, this is not what we can take to our grave. We need to think about our future generations. And I say this, like, it's very concerning to think, you know, we sit up here and to think that when the oil company's done, because we don't have a vast amount of oil that they can keep pumping, so when they do come and they leave, what are you going to do when the meth addict is robbing your house, or your granddaughter becomes a meth addict, or your your granddaughter on her 21st birthday is smoking a pipe rock? Yeah, it's unfathomable, but this is the tale that this snake leaves behind. And these are the issues that you need to worry about. You know, like your sheriffs, your department, your deputies, they're going to be worried or be addressing a whole bigger issue. So if, before you make this decision, I strongly suggest you listen not to to listen to our voices, but also listen and see how this has affected other communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm on the started list. Would it be appropriate to speak now or to wait? I'm not sure what the process is.
If you want to speak, sir, come on up.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. I'm Jay Bender. I'm here with my wife, Ann Cushman. We live at 2 Sile Road in Peña Blanca. I have a couple of points I'd like to make. One on process. We came to the zoning office yesterday and asked for a copy of the agenda, and were told we couldn't have one. I looked online today and found a copy of the ordinance, so I'd like to address the ordinance. Everyone has spoken eloquently about the hazards of fracking. I'd like to talk about the hazards of your ordinance. Part of it is we're going to rely on EPA to protect us. If you believe that, you haven't paid attention the last 11 months. The problem with people in the extractive industries is they leave. and they don't live where the extraction takes place. So they will leave us with a problem. Now, two specific issues with the ordinance. Permissive use denies the public an opportunity for input before the decision is made. I think there needs to be a process where you have a public hearing on each instance where you're talking about fracking. Now, land use ordinances are graduated in terms of the burden placed on property by the activity, by the use or the structure. So fracking is an additional burden on the property, on the land, than straight drilling. So you need to recognize that permissive use allows too many people to make too many decisions without considering the public. And with your 30-day appeal process, if there's a permissive use, how do you know that the use has been granted until your right to appeal has expired? Now, with respect to the insurance requirement, I've earned this gray hair, and I've learned that the insurance business involves the collection of premiums and the denial of claims. So the problem you will have getting an insurance policy from an oil company is that when they stop paying the premium, the insurance company will stop paying the claim. What you need to have is some other form of security from the oil company that's going to be engaged in fracking after you've granted a permit as a conditional use and not as a permissive use. And I would suggest the posting of a surety bond or a cash bond, and not rely on an insurance company that will not be around, just like the oil company will not be around. Thank you for your attention. I appreciate the opportunity to address you.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're done. I hope, hold on, if you wouldn't mind just a minute. I hope you would appreciate the fact that, you know, the commission indulges beyond expectations when it comes to public comment. So we hope you guys appreciate that. I can assure you that we hear things during public comment that we don't hear otherwise. And you all should be thankful. I know I am for your sharing with me your thoughts and the commission. I wanted to ask former Commissioner Orlando Lucero if he wanted to speak, because I noticed he didn't sign up.
I did.
You did?
Yes.
Well, I somehow or another I skipped you, but I want you to be able to speak, sir. So come on up, and then we'll be officially done. What's that?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, thank you very much. My name is Orlando Lucero. I'm from Berlioz. I'm a former commissioner, so I'm very concerned about what's going on. You got a mouthful tonight from your constituents. They speak, I think they're angry, they're concerned. They're concerned about the future, they're concerned about the property values, they're concerned about economics, everything. But I used to teach in Cuba, and I just thought about this right now, but the kids that came in from counselors never slept. They sleep in the classroom. The people and counselors have been leasing their properties out to oil drilling, and the noise was so bad that the kids didn't sleep. And the parents could stay at home and sleep and catch up to their sleep in the daytime, a little bit. But the kids came in, and then half the time they didn't come in because they said the roads were so bad when they were wet that they couldn't get out. So they had to walk to the store and counselors to get the bus for 3 or 4 miles and full of mud. And so I'm going to ask you to defer or postpone this decision until the study is made. And I want to thank you. You guys have been very, you tolerated a lot tonight. But I want to thank you for listening to the people and being very considerate about them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. We're going to take a 5-minute break. It's 12:30. We're going to come back 12:35.